to read the article published by Stabrook News dated November 19, 2019, which captioned, IDB suspends dollars for Sheriff Street Road project over violation. So once you read the article, honorable member, you will have a true picture of what would have caused the project to cease at that time. Thanks for the acknowledgement, Mr. Speaker. I rise from this side of the House to contribute to the debate Sheriff Street 2024 under the theme, Staying the Course, Building Prosperity for All, quote and unquote. It's classified as an enormous budget ever pegged at 1.146 trillion, wow, which is 46.6 more than budget 2023. And to express my disappointment and to say that the budget team aptly describes the nature of the PPP and to ask a rhetorical question, who are they staying the course for, and at the same time building prosperity for which all? I have listened to members' presentations over the last 72 hours and must admittedly state how extremely disappointed and embarrassed I am, to say the least, as members of Parliament, when we are expected to act honorably and respectfully to one another. However, unsurprisingly, honor and respect are no longer displayed in this House. And unfortunately, I have grown accustomed to the fabrication by those on the opposite side. It has become ingrained in their DNA, and the only thing that manifests from them. It only shows how much people will go to maintain political dominance. This National Assembly has been with us long before our independence and remains with us years after. Leaders born before us have left an indelible mark of stalwartness, which we should sustain. However, we are on a moral and professional decline. Mr. Speaker, I believe the time is now for us to mature, seek common grounds, and build a cohesive National Assembly where we agree to disagree with each other respectively and responsibly. As current leaders, we must chart that course for future leaders. Mr. Speaker, while listening to an almost 6-hour presentation by Honorable Dr. Ashni Kumar Singh, several thoughts ran through my mind, which I have yet to come to grips with. I tried processing the theme and can only endorse what my colleagues from this side have been saying, that the friends of the PPP, the families of the PPP, and the favorites of the PPP will ascend the ladder of affluence since they are geared to benefit tremendously from Budget 2024, to build their empire of prosperity on the backs of the vulnerable, the poor, and public servants. Sir, here is a quote from Proverbs 14:31, and it says, I quote, "Whosoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him," unquote. I use this scripture to make this analogy of what currently exists in our society today. That is, people experiencing poverty continue to be oppressed while the government's modus operandi is to invest in infrastructure. I say lucidly, Mr. Speaker, that I have absolutely no trouble with infrastructure development. But I am not against infrastructure. I am, sir, an advocate for human development. However, I detest the neglect of the poor, where all Guyanese and the world are aware that nefarious activities have become ingrained in the contracts associated with infrastructural development, and this seems to be acceptable in Guyana. Mr. Speaker, I opine that the actions of the PPP are heartless, uncaring, and brutal to its citizens. Guyana's current poverty rate stands at 48%, yet budget 2024 has absolutely nothing to change their social status. Mr. Speaker, as I tear the layers of this budget away, I am convinced that the large sum of money touted is just to entice the population. I would only categorize it with these descriptive, Mr. Speaker: an insult to Guyanese, a betrayal to Guyanese, a deception to Guyanese. Budget 2024, borrowing from renowned writers such as J.H.K. Lal, it is the autonomy of a crime against the people, and a three-card trick borrowed by renowned economist Dr. Raul Lucas. Notwithstanding the flurry of descriptive, Mr. Speaker, I am reminded of the famous quote by America's 16th president, the late Abraham Lincoln. And these are the words he had to say, Madam Speaker: you can fool some of the people all the time, and all of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all the people all of the time, unquote. You can fool the population of this country will not allow themselves to be caught in the misinformation and misguidance by the PPPC regime, where budget 2024 is concerned. Additionally, I wish to debunk the flawed utterances by honorable members of this House, those aligned to PPP and the chief of all decisions maker, who is never ever present in this House, Mr. Bharat Jagdeo, who perpetuate that budget 2024 has positives for the ordinary citizens of my beloved nation. I have examined cover to cover the budget 2024 speech and estimates to find these so-called positives. I have only identified the following. It is boneless. It is anti-poor and geared towards creating extreme hardships for the ordinary people of this land. Mr. Speaker, much has been said. Madam Speaker, much has been said about the David Granger-led administration and this People's Progressive Party Civic. But let me do a comparative of the two governments. In 2015 to 2019, the budget of the coalition was pegged at $1.2 trillion. The difference, while the budget of the People's Progressive Party Civic over the last 3 years has spent close to $3 trillion. The difference between these budgets is that the coalition had, as I said before, a cumulative budget of $1.2 trillion without all these revenues, and would have accomplished a magnitude of things in less than 5 years. Let me remind my friends across the aisle, what did we do? Increase salaries for public servants by 77%. Isn't that remarkable? We repaired many debilitated structures. We addressed electricity woes. We improved water supply on a 24 hours basis. We reduced the imposed 16% VAT by 13%. Madam Speaker, we also increased age pension from $13,000 to $20,500. What else we did? We increased NIS minimum wage from $21,352 to $35,000. We restore the rule of law, narco operations minimized, non-politicizing of the disciplinary forces, a professional public service. Madam Speaker, we frequently hear the disposal income talked up by the PPP. Well, let me share what the coalition's disposable income was. And this is what the Honorable former Minister of Finance, Mr. Winston Jordan, had to say during his budget presentation in 2017. If the dollars and cents test is applied, the results are clear. There can be no question that people, public servants, have more in their pockets now than in 2014. The minimum wage has been increased by 38% in May 2015. The minimum wage was $39,540. Today, that's then, it was $55,000. That represents a considerable increase of $15,460. What else we did? The income tax threshold has been increased from $50,000 to $60,000, a 20% in less than 2 years. There have been 2 Christmas bonuses in 2015 and 2016, totaling $75,000. We had $50,000 in 2015 plus $25,000 in 2016. It was the first time that an across-the-board Christmas bonus was paid. The PPP administration limited Christmas bonuses to the security services, leaving all other public servants empty-handed at Christmas time. Well, earlier, I alluded to the fact that the VAT was reduced by us. What else we did? The VAT exempt threshold has been increased from $10 million to $15 million. There has been a new personal income tax, 28% to 40%, which allows for greater deductions versus the rate of 30%. It is under the PPP government. On the other hand, the PPPC regime's 5th budget thus far has surpassed the coalition's, giving us a cumulative amount of some $3 million. However, though, 2 budgets were deemed prosperity for all. Guyanese are tasting the bitter end of the stick every day. Many have complained that it is worse under the PPP than the coalition government. The PPPC regime has access to the nation's oil resources, but rather than making all Guyanese happy, this is what they have endured for the last 3 years. The high cost of living, an unprofessional and highly politicized discipline force, corruption, malpractices by office holders at the peak, domestic violence on the increase, defiance of the rule of law from a promised elections campaign of 50% increase in salaries for public servants to 21.5%. No increase in the minimum wage for public servants, high road accidents, a misdemeanor of a minister in public office who subsequently tendered his resignation after public outcry. Still waiting on soon to be found to be served with documents by the frequent missing in action member, Honorable Jaglio. Still to account to the nation of the mysterious US $211 million after cost recovery audit, political victimization, irregular parliamentary sittings, non-convening of parliamentary standing committees, resuscitation of the narco trade in Guyana. This is what we have endured over the last 3 years, Madam Speaker. What prosperity for all.
Remember, did you just say resuscitation of narco trade in Guyana?
Yes.
Do you have evidence of this?
Well, you don't see the ships leaving the country and all kind of things. The ships leaving the cocaine, Madam Speaker, and I bring the reports, Madam Speaker. And the same department report I laid to the National Assembly.
Please, Honorable Member.
Will do, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what prosperity for all when lands occupied by ordinary Guyanese, predominantly single women with children, were flooded in September 2020. Madam Speaker, what prosperity for all when lands occupied by residents in the Caneview area of Mucka were bulldozed and live animals buried on January 2023. Madam Speaker, what prosperity for all when Wolford, Susdyke, Linden Highway residents had their lands and their personal belongings bulldozed in June 2023. May I say to the Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh that Guyanese are tired of the word chorus of rigged elections, quote and unquote, in his budget presentation since 2020. It will serve the honorable member well to desist from these utterances, since a competent court of law is yet to pronounce whether GRE 2022 were rigged. Also, these matters are sub judice and should not be made mention in this National Assembly. Madam Speaker, as I prepare to focus my presentation on the sector for this debate, I wish to express my disquiet of the comments contained in the Honorable Dr. Singh's speech in para 4.227, page 83 of 115, under the head procurement. In simple layman context, Madam Speaker, the honorable member in his failed attempt tried to hoodwink Guyanese into believing that all is well at MP Tab, when the entire world is cognizant that contracts are being awarded to companies lately created, lacking experiences, and in many cases awarded to persons who are closely aligned to the PPPC. Our arrangements, Madam Speaker, are privately made at a known residence on the east coast of Demerara. Madam Speaker, I join with my colleagues in expressing my gross displeasure, disappointment, and dissatisfaction in the PPPC regime regarding the measures announced by Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh. Despite the regime's attempt to justify the figures post-budget presentation by their colleague, Honorable Dr. Singh, the different commentaries by pro-PPPC activists, and the various letters published, these cannot erase the sentiments expressed to me as a legislator by ordinary Guyanese who felt cheated, disrespected, and lesser as citizens. The questions I have become immune to every day, Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Where is the oil money going? We ain't going to benefit from this $1 trillion budget, Ms. Ferguson. The opposition must fight for us. What these people doing with the money? There is no hope for the ghetto youth, and this is one ghetto youth, addressing me. What these people believe is only them and their families must get rich off our monies. It's only them must live the prosperous life. The only way these people want to give ghetto youths is cleaning roads and gutter. Let them people know that we deserve the prosperous life. The oil money belongs to us, and this constant 25,000 about cannot cut it. It is the main fact that our nation's resources without oil was better managed by the Granger-led administration. MP Ferguson, we were enjoying the start to a good life. We could have saved after spending. These expressions, Mr. Speaker, were attributed by a mixture of Guyanese, predominantly women, being the dominant factor. Mr. Speaker, when I examine these announced measures contained in the Honorable Member Dr. Singh's budget speech on pages 99 to 105 of 115, empathy stepped in, and I continue to question myself. How are ordinary Guyanese coping daily? Starbuck News, we have heard all the reports over the last 72 hours of how, Guyanese have been complaining bitterly. Mr. Speaker, I turn our attention to the housing sector, which is of interest to me, since I believe much justice is not given to those who are deserving to benefit. In accordance with the Act of the CHNPA, which clearly defines, Mr. Speaker, that its core creation is to provide housing for working class, quote and unquote. Mr. Speaker, there has been a major deviation from this law pre-May 2015, and it has become much pervasive since August 2020. We have been reading of the malpractices at the housing sector. Mr. Speaker, just a couple of weeks ago, the very Ministry of Housing had to put out a press release, which one woman, it was discovered that one person had three house lots from the Central Housing and Planning Authority, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when one listens to the propaganda propagated by my colleagues on the opposite side of the House, who have responsibilities for the housing and water sectors, they get the impression that these sectors came into existence post-May 2015 and the coalition did nothing, which is far from the truth. However, Guyanese are aware of what existed pre-May 2015. There was no housing policy since whatever mechanism the PPPC administration had failed to satisfy the demand in housing. What I can safely say is that the housing program of the past 2 decades was bedeviled with problems. What are some of these problems, Mr. Speaker? Prohibitive costs, the high costs, Mr. Speaker, for house lots, abysmal infrastructure within housing schemes, instances of failures on the part of some private developers. And Mr. Speaker, I was doing a little research and so what's going on across this country, Mr. Speaker. Across this country, right now what is happening at the Ministry of Housing, we got developers, many of those in the Providence area, Mr. Speaker, in the Providence, the devil walk in. Mr. Speaker, this is what is happening in the Providence community. This is what is happening in the Providence community. Right now, this is housing development by private developers. And many of the developers, Mr. Speaker, were past staff of the Ministry of Housing who now turn private housing developers. Mr. Speaker, the other complaints that I received, Mr. Speaker, this is a young professional house in the Prospect area. 1 year. This is what is evidence. It is $14 million, sir. $14 million. And these people are paying loans. So they're coming in, they come to talk as though I don't know what is happening on the ground. Slop in the processing, there's a slothfulness in the processing of land titles and shoddy construction. I've just exhibited a few work of government housing units. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, I will share with this National Assembly what the coalition government inherited in May 2015 and what was done. I challenge the Honorable Cole coming after me to prove me wrong. So here are the facts at the end of 2016. There was 56,466 pending house lots application on file. This figure comprised, Mr. Speaker, of some 44,425 applicants who were pre-qualified for a house lot, but also was made perhaps the Honorable Cole will provide reasons why. And 12,041 applicants who were issued allocation of letters, but did not take up the allocation, of which, Mr. Speaker, 32% of all pending applications were classified as low income and remainder as middle income. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, the coalition conducted a study on the challenges facing the government housing program in Guyana. It was discovered that a high number of pending applications for low-income applicants can be partially attributed to a crowding out effect due to the high provision of our slots, primarily middle and income earners. Between 2009 and 2014, Dr. Actually Kumar Singh, not the coalition government. The findings also found that the overall backlog of applications may also be because of cases where the applicant may have declined an offer despite being offered house slots across several schemes by CHP. Mr. Speaker, the findings further show that the reasons for declining includes a lack of affordability at the time of offer, or a lack of desire to build a home at the location's offer, which may in part be due to the insufficient public infrastructure services. Mr. Speaker, I can parallel what is currently happening in the LBI housing scheme. This is what is happening. On the eastern side, they're building hundreds of professional houses by private developers. Mr. Speaker, what is happening on the eastern side in that housing scheme? Lantern posts with transmission lines run, water, electricity, so construction moving at a pace. But the lands to the east, to the west, sorry. Yeah, the lands to the east. No, the lands to the west, it's supposed to be the first. The lands to the east, sir, when you go in, this is what is happening, sir. People have started to construct, but construction is not moving at pace as what is happening in the area where the young professional houses are being constructed. You know why? The people ain't getting water. They ain't got light. They ain't got light. The people said to me when I asked what happening, why construction moving so slow. The people said, every day, madam, they don't know who I be. Every day, they pay 3,000 for black tank for the water coming from the trench outside of the community. They're going to be working generator to cut wood and all manner of thing. While the opposite side, they got the lights, they got the water, and they got the transmission wires run. You know what one developer said to me? The guy said to me, you see what happening over there? That's how the government care about. They care about poor people, Mr. Speaker. And what I recognize too, Mr. Speaker, is that lantern posts, it will show you here, Mr. Speaker, lantern posts, these lantern posts, they were lately installed. Perhaps y'all knew that Ferguson was heading there. They knew that Ferguson was heading there.
Honorable member, I care about you and I recognize that you have to get an extension to conclude.
Thank you, Comment Speaker. Comment Speaker, I do move that the honorable member be given 5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Chris. Honorable member, you have 5 minutes to conclude from now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. There's so much to say on the housing scheme, on the housing sector, but time will not permit me, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the speaker before me said that we had 5.8 billion and we only spent 12% of that 5.8 billion. What the honorable is trying to say to us, Mr. Speaker, the 1,000 homes that they built in perseverance. The coalition government had to expend over $2 billion to fix all the defects, Mr. Speaker. So when you come to talk about housing, come with your facts, Madam Susan Rodriguez. Mr. Speaker, the disparity will continue. The disparity will continue. But I think I need to put this on record. Because we oftentimes come to this National Assembly and we talk so nicely about caring for people and providing 30,000 house lots, as they constantly would say. But Mr. Speaker, the forensic report of the Sparendam Housing Project, page 20, this is what it had to say at 10.5, Mr. Barrett Jagdeo. At the material, honorable member, at the material time, Mr. Barrett Jagdeo was executive president and head of the cabinet. He was previously an allottee of land at Good Sewacton, popularly known as Platteville 1. The point is here, Mr. Speaker, he was awarded this land in 1998. Never lived in the house, built a house, never lived in it. And disposed of sold the property for $120 million in 2010, and constructed that a piece of land they took from NCN at Sparendam. And what he did, they ensured lights, they ensured water, they ensured drainage, and you know what? Transformers of which he never paid for, Mr. Speaker. The records are righted. So when y'all come in to talk, but y'all have love, y'all care about poor people and very principled people, y'all ain't ready yet to speak when it comes to the housing sector. Mr. Speaker, look what they're doing in an economy, an oil economy. You're getting these houses to give who? Mr. Speaker, we took a drive. These photos, I took them mid last year. But I went back on Saturday to see who really living in these houses. Mr. Speaker, the area right now, nobody living in these houses. Stop dining, don't want to live in textile farm. You have the just like this and big dining proper houses. Mr. Speaker, what is happening here now? The area has been overgrown with bushes because you know why? Guyanese they want food to live in. Guyanese need houses. Mr. Speaker, I am now going to wrap up, and I'm really, really sorry that time has really eluded me. I can't even touch the water sector, but we have done a whole lot in the water sector. Mr. Speaker, for the arguments advanced earlier, I conclude by saying it is difficult for me, Annette Ferguson, to support Budget 2024 in its current construct, since it has failed the litmus test of our people's expectation by not addressing the bread and butter issues. I will be doing my people a disservice and to support this measly 3,000 for old age pension and 3,000 for public assistance. No increase in the minimum wage for public servants, no substantial programs for women and youths in Budget 2024. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, Budget 2024, in my view, is for the bourgeoisie. My respectful submission said, I thank you, and may God continue to bless us all.
Thank you, honorable member. And now for the honorable Minister of Housing and Water.